The mystery surrounding the death of a social media influencer from New Jersey is deepening.
We just want the truth. We just want to know what happened.
She was happy. This is what she wanted.
She FaceTimed me, showed me her ring. She's like, Papa, I'm happy.
I received a phone call from Joe. He told me that Ashlee did something to herself and that she was being taken to the hospital, and that he told me that she was stable. Never done anything that would ever lead me to believe that she would do something to harm herself.
It has been weeks since Ashlee Jenae died in a hotel room in Zanzibar, Tanzania. And in that time, her family has been fighting for answers, fighting for her belongings, fighting just to understand what happened to their daughter in the final hours of her life. Last week, something significant happened in this case, and it has only deepened the questions that have been surrounding this story from the very beginning. Ashlee Jenae's body was returned to her family in New Jersey, but her engagement ring was not with it. Her personal belongings are still being held too, and when her father asked about it, the answer he got back raised even more questions than it answered. There are things about this case that have not been widely discussed. The timeline, the people involved, what the family has been going through, what investigators have and have not said, and what people who have been following this closely are starting to connect. By the time you get to the end of this video, you are going to understand why this case is not as straightforward as some early reports made it seem. And you are going to have questions of your own. Hello everyone, welcome to Crime Prism. If you are new here, this is the place where we look at real crime cases from every angle. If this is your kind of content, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. All right, let's talk about this. Before we get into the latest updates, let us do a quick recap of who Ashlee was and how we got here. Because if you are new to this case, you need the background to understand why everything that followed is so disturbing. And even if you have been following this story, stay with me because there are details in this recap that connect to what we are going to discuss later. Ashlee Jenae Robinson was a 31-year-old lifestyle and travel content creator based in Portland, Oregon. She had built a following of over 100,000 people on Instagram, sharing her life, her travels, her personality, the kind of content that made you feel like you knew her personally. People who followed her described her as vibrant, full of life, the kind of person whose energy came through the screen. Her family described her as a beacon of light, and looking at her page, you understand exactly what they mean. Her partner was a man named Joe McCann. He is 45 years old. Court records identify him as the founder and managing partner of a cryptocurrency and investment firm in Portland called Asymmetric Technologies. So this was not a spontaneous budget trip. This was a man with means, taking his partner to one of the most beautiful resort destinations in the world. In early April, the two of them traveled to Tanzania together to celebrate Ashlee turning 31. And before they even got to Zanzibar, Joe proposed to her during a safari stop near Kilimanjaro. There was a lion walking in the background. She said yes. She posted the ring, she posted the moment, and on April 5th, her actual birthday, her last Instagram post showed her feeding a giraffe in Tanzania. Her caption read, "Chapter 31, and I'm exactly where I need to be." She had no idea that within days, everything would fall apart. Now let us get into what actually happened during those final days in Tanzania. And I want you to pay close attention to the sequence of events here, because the timeline is everything in this case. Ashlee and Joe arrived in Zanzibar on April 4th and checked into the Zuri Zanzibar, a luxury resort. From the outside, everything still looked fine. Ashlee was posting, she was celebrating, she was engaged, but according to witnesses who later came forward, something was already wrong behind the scenes. Witnesses told investigators that the two of them had been arguing, and not just once. The arguments were frequent, and they started almost immediately after the couple arrived on April 4th. Now that is important, because the picture being painted publicly was one thing. What was allegedly happening inside that resort was another. By April 8th, things had escalated to the point where it was no longer something the hotel could ignore. Staff intervened and made the decision to separate Ashlee and Joe, moving them into different rooms. And we are not talking about rooms next door to each other. Joe's room was reportedly about a 10-minute walk away from Ashlee's. A few hours after that separation, a hotel worker found Ashlee unconscious inside her villa. She was rushed to a hospital in Zanzibar. On April 9th, Ashlee Jenae Robinson was pronounced dead. She was 31 years old. She had been engaged for less than a week, and that is when the questions really started. So let us talk about Joe McCann, because his behavior since Ashlee's death is something that a lot of people have been watching very closely. And when you lay it all out, it raises a lot of questions. First, Joe has not made a single public statement since Ashlee died. Not one. No condolences. No statement to the press. No post. No interview. Nothing. The woman he proposed to less than a week before her death, the woman he was on a birthday trip with, the woman whose family is grieving publicly, and he has had absolutely nothing to say, not privately to the family, not publicly to the world. Now, some people will say grief is private and everyone handles loss differently. That is fair, but the silence is not the only thing people are pointing to. Shortly after Ashlee's death, Joe went on social media and made all of his profiles private. And this is the part that really got people talking, he updated his profile picture. He did not deactivate. He did not delete. He updated. While Ashlee's family was still trying to get her body back home while her parents were on television asking for answers, Joe McCann was updating his profile picture. And then there is the matter of contact with the family. Ashlee's father, Harry Robinson, has said that they have had very little communication from Joe since she died. These are the people who were about to become his in-laws, the people who are burying their daughter, and they are saying they have barely heard from him. The family is also still waiting on the hotel surveillance footage from the Zuri Zanzibar, footage that could potentially show what happened in those final hours. They have been requesting it, and so far it has not been handed over to them. Whether investigators are holding it as part of the active probe, or whether there are other reasons it has not surfaced, nobody is saying. What we do know is that Joe McCann has not been charged with anything. His current location has not been publicly confirmed, and the only noise coming from his direction is silence. Now, beyond what has been officially reported, there is a lot that Ashlee's followers and the public have been speculating about, and some of these theories have been gaining serious traction. The first thing people are talking about is the engagement ring. We already know the ring was not returned with Ashlee's body. Her father said the family believes it is still being held by investigators as part of the active investigation. And that detail alone has people asking, why would an engagement ring be held as evidence? What would make a piece of jewelry significant enough to hold on to? Nobody has answered that question officially, but people are connecting dots in ways that are hard to ignore. The second theory that has been gaining a lot of traction is that the real reason behind the arguments between Ashlee and Joe was that Ashlee had discovered Joe was involved with someone locally in Tanzania. The theory goes that she found out during the trip. That is what triggered the repeated arguments from the moment they arrived, and that is what led to everything that happened on April 8th. Again, this has not been confirmed by anyone officially, but it is one of the most talked about theories surrounding this case right now. And connected to that, there is another speculation that has been circulating widely. People are claiming that Joe McCann is actually married, that Ashlee may not have known the full picture of who she was with. And if that turns out to have any truth to it, it reframes this entire story in a very different way. The third thing people keep coming back to is the disconnect between the cause of death listed in those hospital records, strangulation and suffocation, and the early suggestion of suicide from local Tanzanian reports. Ashlee's followers are saying those two things cannot coexist, and they want to know why that gap has not been addressed publicly by anyone in an official capacity. And then there is something that some people following this case very closely have been flagging, and this one is particularly serious. There are claims that coordinated efforts are being made to control the narrative around this case online, that bots and inauthentic accounts are being used to push the suicide angle and drown out the voices calling for accountability. This is what is called astroturfing, manufacturing public opinion by flooding online spaces with accounts pushing one specific story. Nobody has produced hard evidence of this. But the people who have been watching this case closely say the patterns they are seeing online do not look organic. And in a case with this many unanswered questions, that claim alone is worth paying attention to. These are the questions people are not letting go of. And honestly, it is not hard to understand why. So where does everything stand as of right now? Because this is what is important to understand. This case is still very much open, and the family is still very much fighting. Ashlee's body was returned to her family in New Jersey on April 25th. A funeral service has been planned. But even in that moment, that should have brought some form of closure, there was another painful reminder that this is far from over. Her personal belongings, including her engagement ring, were not returned with her. And her father has said he has no idea if or when they will get those items back. The family has conducted their own independent autopsy. Results are still pending. The official Tanzanian autopsy was completed on April 14th. The family has still not received those full results. They were simply told the investigation is ongoing. So there are now 2 autopsies done on Ashlee's body, and the public knows the results of neither. Her father, Harry Robinson, traveled all the way to Washington, D.C. to press U.S. government officials for help getting through to Tanzanian authorities. The U.S. State Department has confirmed it is aware of and monitoring this case, but has not made any substantive public comment. That effort did result in some contact being made, but the family is still waiting on the full autopsy report and has no clear timeline for when it is coming. Now the surveillance footage. The family has been requesting CCTV footage from the Zuri Zanzibar from the night of April 8th, footage that could be critical in piecing together Ashlee's final hours. They have contacted the hotel, they have contacted the consulate, they have contacted the embassy, and as of today, that footage has still not been handed over. No explanation has been offered by the hotel or by Tanzanian authorities as to why. They are not being told it does not exist. They are not being told when it will be released. They are just not getting it. And then that silence around the footage is almost as loud as everything else in this case. Now, here is something else that has been circulating that I want to address. There are people who have been closely watching the conversation around this case online, and they are claiming that coordinated efforts are being made to shift the narrative. Specifically that bots and planted accounts are being used to push the suicide angle and drown out the voices calling for accountability. This is what is known as astroturfing, essentially manufacturing public opinion by flooding online spaces with inauthentic accounts pushing a specific story. Now, this has not been confirmed or reported by any verified outlet. Nobody has produced hard evidence of this, but the fact that people who have been following this case carefully are noticing what they describe as suspicious patterns in how the conversation is being shaped online, that is something worth being aware of as you follow this story. What we do know for certain is that Joe McCann has still not made a single public statement. No charges have been filed. His location has not been publicly confirmed. And people who have been watching his online presence say that while Ashlee's name has been scrubbed from his profiles, he has continued posting about work and crypto as if none of this is happening. Ashlee's family launched a GoFundMe to help cover funeral and travel expenses. As of this week, it has raised over $63,000, which shows you that people care. People are paying attention, and people are not moving on from this. And that is where this case stands right now. No charges, no autopsy results, no surveillance footage, no statement from Joe, and a family that is grieving while simultaneously fighting a battle that should not be this hard to fight. What makes this case so difficult to sit with is that there are so many layers to it. You have an official narrative that the family flatly rejects. You have medical records that contradict the early reports. You have a man who was there that night who has chosen complete silence. And you have a young woman who by every account was happy, was loved, and was just stepping into a new chapter of her life. Ashlee posted chapter 31, and I'm exactly where I need to be on her birthday. 5 days later, she was gone. And the people who loved her still do not know why. We do not know what the autopsies will reveal. We do not know what is on that hotel surveillance footage or if the family will ever get access to it. We do not know what Joe McCann's silence means or what he knows. And we do not know how long this investigation will drag on before anyone gets a real answer. What we do know is that Ashlee Jenae Robinson deserves those answers. Her family deserves them. And the only way cases like this stay on the radar is if people keep talking about them. If you've been following this case, drop your thoughts in the comments. There is a lot here that has not been resolved, and I want to know what you are making of all of it. And if this video reached you and you are just learning about Ashlee for the first time, share it, because her name needs to stay in these conversations until there is real accountability and real truth. Like this video and subscribe to the channel for updates on this case and other true crime cases. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.